You wake up. Your internal clock tells you it should be morning. The heavy wooden shutters of your window are closed, but usually by this hour, sharp blades of golden light would be cutting through the cracks, illuminating the dust motes dancing in your room. But today, the room is dim. It is filled with a stagnant grey gloom. You assume it is early. You roll over, pulling the rough wool blanket tighter around your shoulders, and wait for the sounds of the city to rise. But the city is already awake. You can hear the muffled sounds of carts on cobblestones and the distant, confused murmuring of voices. You stand up, your feet touching the cold stone floor, and you push the shutters open. You expect to be blinded by the Mediterranean sun. You expect the heat to hit your face. Instead, you step out into a world that has lost its color. The sky is not blue. It is a sickly, milky white, stretching from horizon to horizon like a shroud. And the sun is wrong. It hangs in the sky, but it has no fire. It is a pale blue disk, distinct and sharp-edged, looking more like the moon than the source of all life. You can look directly at it without squinting. It gives off no heat. It casts no shadow. You step out onto the street. The air feels thick, but not with humidity. It feels dry. There is a fine, invisible grit in the atmosphere, a dry fog that catches in the back of your throat and tastes faintly of sulfur and ash. You look at your hands. In this strange, filtered light, your skin looks grey. You look at your neighbor, a baker who is usually covered in sweat by this hour. He is standing by his door, wiping his flour-covered hands on his apron, staring up at the sky with a look of primal fear. He catches your eye, and neither of you says a word. There are no words for this. The sun has turned its face away. As the hours drag on, the unease in your stomach turns into a knot of anxiety. You try to go about your day. You walk to the forum, passing the marble statues of emperors and gods. Usually, the noon sun casts deep, sharp shadows behind them, marking the passage of time on the sundials. But today, the statues stand in a flat, shadowless void. The sundials are useless. Time has seemingly stopped, or at least it has lost its meaning. The Roman official Cassiodorus will later write about this moment, a letter that you might hear whispered in the marketplaces. We marvel to see no shadows of our bodies at noon, and to feel the mighty vigor of the sun's heat wasted into feebleness. You are living that marvel now, and it feels like a curse. You notice the silence first, the birds. Usually the swallows and gulls are screaming overhead, diving for scraps. Today they are silent. They are roosting in the eaves, huddled together, their heads tucked under their wings. They think it is twilight. The roosters crow confusedly at random hours, their internal rhythms broken by the twilight that never ends. You walk past a temple. The priests are gathering on the steps, their chanting louder than usual, tinged with a desperate edge. They are sacrificing incense, sending smoke up into the already choked sky. They are asking what sin the city has committed to deserve this eternal eclipse. Is it the wars? Is it the corruption? You find yourself wondering the same thing. You touch the amulet around your neck. You are a rational person, a citizen of the civilized world, but when the sun dies, reason dies with it. Days turn into weeks. You keep waiting for the wind to change. You keep waiting for a storm to blow this dust veil away, but the air remains terrifyingly still. And then the horror shifts from the visual to the physical. It is supposed to be summer. It is supposed to be the season of abundance, of warmth, of long evenings drinking wine on the terrace. But you are cold. It starts as a chill in the morning, something you dismiss, but the heat never comes. The temperature drops steadily, day by day. You walk out to the edge of the city, to the vineyards and the orchards that feed the empire. What you see there makes your blood run cold. The grapevines, which should be heavy with swelling fruit, are shriveled. The leaves are not turning the gold of autumn, they are turning a necrotic black. They are rotting on the vine. The apples are small, hard stones, falling prematurely to the ground. One morning you walk out and see something impossible. White flakes are drifting down from the grey sky. It is snowing. In Mesopotamia. In the summer. The flakes land on the dead wheat fields, covering the black rot with a pristine white blanket. You watch a farmer fall to his knees in the mud, weeping. He knows what you are just beginning to realize. The harvest is not coming. The earth has gone dormant. The cycle of life has been broken. You rush back to the market to buy grain. You are not the only one. The panic has finally set in. The lines at the granaries are long, winding through the streets. The price of bread has doubled since yesterday. Tomorrow it will triple. You look at the faces of the people in line, mothers clutching children, old soldiers, wealthy merchants. The class distinctions are melting away, replaced by the universal hollow-eyed look of hunger. You return to your home and bolt the door. The stone walls, usually designed to keep the heat out, now trap the cold inside. You light a fire, but the wood is damp and smokes heavily. You sit close to the flames, watching your breath mist in the air of your own living room. You try to eat a piece of hard bread, chewing slowly to make it last. You think about the future. If the sun does not shine, the grain does not grow. If the grain does not grow, the animals die. If the animals die, you die. It is a simple, brutal equation. Rumors are starting to penetrate the city walls, carried by travelers who look like skeletons. They say it is not just here. They say in China the stars have vanished and yellow dust rains from the sky. They say in Ireland the people are eating weeds. The entire world is trapped in this same suffocating fog. Night falls, but it is barely different from the day. The blue twilight simply fades into a pitch-black darkness, devoid of moon or stars. You lie in your bed, listening to the wind howl through the empty streets. It sounds different now, lonelier. You close your eyes, praying for a dream of yellow sun and blue sky. But when you sleep, you dream of ice. You dream of silence. You do not know it yet, but this is only the beginning. The darkness will last for 18 months, and when the light finally returns, the world you know will be gone. You are living in the year 536, the year the history books will later call the worst year to be alive. And you are just trying to survive the night. Time has become a blur. You have stopped counting the days because the days no longer look different from the nights. The calendar says it is September, the month when the harvest should be coming in. In a normal year, the carts would be rumbling through the city gates, piled high with golden sheaves of wheat, bursting with fat pumpkins and crates of purple grapes. The air should smell of yeast and crushing fruit. The city should be celebrating the bounty of the earth. But the city gates are open, and the road is empty. You walk out to the fields again, drawn by a morbid curiosity, or perhaps just the need to see it with your own eyes to believe it. The silence is the loudest thing you have ever heard. There are no crickets. There are no bees buzzing among the wildflowers, because there are no wildflowers. The landscape is a monochrome study in death. The wheat fields are a graveyard of black, rot-twisted stalks that crumble when you touch them. They never ripened. They simply drowned in the cold, damp dark. The farmers are there, walking like ghosts through the mist, turning over the soil with spades, looking for anything, a turnip, a root, a forgotten onion. They are digging up the seed grain they planted months ago. They are eating the future to survive the present. You return to the city, your boots heavy with mud that never seems to dry. The dry fog is still there. It hasn't lifted for a single hour in 6 months. It hangs over the rooftops like a dirty wool blanket, trapping the smoke from the chimneys so that the whole city smells of soot and desperation. You look up at the sun, that pale, impotent disk, and for the first time you feel a surge of genuine hatred for it. It is watching you starve. Hunger is not a sharp pain, not at first. It is a slow, heavy pressure that starts in the pit of your stomach and spreads to your mind. At first, you felt angry. You felt the sharp pangs of missing a meal. But now, months into the famine, the anger has faded into a dull lethargy. Your body is entering a state of hibernation. You sit at your table, staring at the small ration of bread you managed to barter for. It is dark, heavy, and gritty. To stretch the flour, the bakers have begun mixing it with sawdust, ground acorns, and strange grasses. You chew it mechanically. It tastes of earth. It provides no comfort, only a temporary cessation of the gnawing emptiness. You look at your hands resting on the wood. The skin is becoming translucent like parchment paper. You can see the blue veins tracing their way over the bones of your knuckles. You are disappearing. You catch your reflection in a basin of water. Your eyes look too large for your face. Your cheeks are hollowed out. You look like the icons of saints painted on the church walls, gaunt, suffering, otherworldly. But it is the cold that makes the hunger worse. Without food, your body has no fuel to burn. You are constantly freezing. The chill sits inside your marrow. You wear every piece of clothing you own, tunics, cloaks, wool wraps, but you cannot get warm. You sleep huddled together with your family, a tangle of limbs trying to share body heat, waking up shivering in the middle of the endless twilight. The social fabric of the city, once woven tight by centuries of Roman law and custom, is beginning to fray. You see it in the eyes of the people on the street. The polite nods are gone. The conversations are brief and suspicious. Everyone is guarding a secret, a hidden sack of beans, a salted fish, a stash of coins that are rapidly becoming worthless. You hear stories of what is happening in the countryside. They say the wolves are coming closer to the villages, emboldened by the silence. But the wolves are finding nothing to hunt either. The deer have died. The rabbits have frozen in their burrows. The entire ecosystem is collapsing from the bottom up. Travelers from the east bring terrifying news. They speak of the great city of Antioch, where the ground shook and the buildings crumbled as if the earth itself was shuddering in pain. They speak of the lands beyond the Danube, where entire tribes are migrating, moving south, desperate to find the sun. They are pushing against the borders of the empire, not out of conquest, but out of panic. A merchant tells you of a letter he saw, written by a Roman official named Cassiodorus. He wrote, "The seasons have changed by failing to change." It captures the horror perfectly. Winter merged into a sunless spring, which bled into a frozen summer, and now you're heading back into winter without a harvest. It is a year without time, a year without seasons, a year where the only constant is the grey. As December approaches, the desperation reaches a breaking point. You stop seeing dogs in the street. Then you stop seeing rats. Everything that can be eaten has been eaten. You are walking past the harbour one afternoon, watching the grey waves lap against the grey stones. A ship is docking. It is a grain ship from Egypt, the breadbasket of the empire. A ripple of excitement, weak but palpable, moves through the crowd. Maybe there is hope. Maybe the sun is still shining in the south. But as the gangplank lowers, you see the sailors. They are not cheering. They move slowly, stumbling. Some are being carried. They look just as gaunt as you. The news spreads through the crowd in a whisper that turns into a wail. The harvest failed in Egypt too. The Nile did not flood. The sun was blocked there as well. The ship is mostly empty, but it is not entirely empty. As the crates are unloaded, you see something scurrying down the ropes, dropping onto the wet stones of your city. Rats, black rats. They have survived the journey. They are hungry, just like you, and they are carrying something in their blood that has been waiting for centuries for a moment just like this, a moment when humanity is weak, cold, and crowded together in the dark. You wrap your cloak tighter and turn away, walking back to your cold stone house. The famine has taken your strength. The cold has taken your hope. But you do not know that the true nightmare has just disembarked at the pier. The silence of the fields was mercy. The noise that is coming next will be the sound of the end of the world. You survived the winter. Barely. The year 537 bled into 538, and the sun eventually returned, though it was never quite as bright as you remembered. The dust veil thinned, but it left behind a world that was broken. You are thinner now. Your clothes hang off your frame like rags on a scarecrow. You are weak, your immune system shattered by months of malnutrition, but you are alive. You tell yourself the worst is over. You tell yourself that if you could survive the year of darkness, you can survive anything. But the darkness brought something with it. It started at the docks, in the very grain sacks you fought to buy. You didn't see the passenger that crawled out of the ship's hold, a tiny, insignificant flea riding on the back of a black rat. It scuttled into the shadows of the warehouse, then into the alleyways, and finally, into your home. You are sleeping one night, wrapped in your blankets, when you feel a sharp, stinging prick on your ankle. You slap at it in your sleep, muttering, and roll over. It is nothing, just a bug bite. You have endured starvation, freezing cold, and eternal twilight. A bug bite is nothing. 2 days later, you wake up, and you are not cold anymore. For the first time in 2 years, you are hot, burning hot. A fever is raging through your body with the ferocity of a forest fire. You throw off your blankets, sweating profusely, your teeth chattering violently. You try to stand, but the room spins. The stone walls of your house seem to breathe in and out. You stumble to the water basin, splashing your face, thinking it is just a fever from the bad grain. But then you feel the pain. It is a dull, throbbing ache in your groin. It feels like a stone has been planted under your skin. You reach down to touch it, and you gasp. There is a lump there, the size of an egg. It is hard, hot to the touch, and incredibly painful. You have heard whispers of this. They call it the bubo. Panic, cold and sharp, cuts through your fever haze. You strip off your tunic and check your armpits. Another lump is forming there, behind your right arm. You look in the mirror. Your eyes are bloodshot. The whites turned a terrifying shade of muddy red. Your tongue feels swollen and dry, like a piece of old leather in your mouth. You stumble to the door and look out into the street. You are not the only one. The silence of the famine has been replaced by a new sound, a low, constant moaning that drifts from the windows of your neighbors. You see a man walking down the street, or rather, stumbling. He is shouting at someone who isn't there, swinging his arms at invisible demons. The fever cooks the brain before it kills the body. He collapses in the gutter, and nobody rushes to help him. People shrink away, pressing themselves against the walls, pulling their cloaks over their faces. The fear of contagion is stronger than the impulse of charity. You retreat inside and bolt the door again. You realize with a sinking horror that the famine
was just the weakening blow. It was the jab to the jaw that left humanity stunned. This is the knockout punch. This is the pestilence. Time loses its meaning again, dissolved in a delirium of heat and pain. You lie on your pallet, drifting in and out of consciousness. In your lucid moments, you hear the city dying. At first, there were funerals. You heard the weeping of families, the chanting of priests, the wooden wheels of carts carrying bodies to the cemeteries outside the walls. But as the days pass, the rituals stop. There are too many dead. The priests are dead. The gravediggers are dead. You drag yourself to the window one morning. The street below is a scene from the apocalypse. Bodies are lying where they fell. They are not being moved. The smell is thick and sweet, a cloying, heavy scent of decay that permeates the wood of your shutters. You hear rumors shouted from the street below. They say the Emperor Justinian himself has the sickness. The god-king, the ruler of the known world, is lying in his palace with black boils on his skin. If the emperor cannot be saved, what hope is there for you? They say the cemeteries are full. They are digging massive trenches now, tossing bodies in like refuse. When the trenches filled, they started stuffing bodies into the towers of the city walls. They fill them from the bottom to the top and seal the roofs. The city is becoming a sarcophagus. You look at your own body. The swellings have turned black. Gangrene is setting in. You are rotting while you are still alive. You feel a strange sense of detachment. You are too tired to be afraid anymore. You just want the thirst to stop.
The psychological toll is heavier than the physical one. You are a person of the 6th century. You do not know about bacteria. You do not know about Yersinia pestis. You only know God. And looking at the world around you, the sun that failed to shine, the winter that never ended, and now the plague that melts the flesh, there is only one logical conclusion. This is the end of days. The apocalypse has arrived. God has judged humanity and found it wanting. You lie in the dark, listening to the silence returning. The screaming has stopped because the screamers are dead. The city is still. You wonder if there is anyone left alive in the world, or if you are the last soul waiting to be extinguished. You remember the year before the fog. You remember the taste of fresh wine, the sound of music in the hippodrome, the feeling of the warm sun on your face. It feels like a memory from a different life, a different planet. That world is gone. It was swept away by the grey fog and the black rat. Your breathing becomes shallow. The fever burns the last of your energy. You close your eyes, not knowing if you will open them again. You are a victim of the worst year in history. You survived the darkness, but you could not outrun the shadow it cast. As you drift away, you wonder, will anyone remember us? Will anyone remember that we were here and that we suffered?
For 1,000 years, the horror of 536 AD was just a story. It was a dark legend written in the crumbling scrolls of monks and the letters of terrified politicians. Historians read the words of Cassiodorus, "The sun seems to have lost its wonted light," and dismissed them. They thought it was a metaphor. They thought he was being poetic about the decline of the Roman Empire. Surely the sun didn't actually turn blue. Surely the seasons didn't actually stop. But the Earth remembers. In the 1990s, scientists drilled deep into the glaciers of Greenland and Antarctica. They pulled up long cylindrical cores of ice, frozen time capsules that record the atmosphere of the planet year by year, layer by layer. They counted back through the centuries, past the Industrial Revolution, past the medieval warm period, back to the layer corresponding to the year 536. And there, trapped in the ice, they found the smoking gun. It wasn't a metaphor. It was glass, microscopic shards of volcanic glass, chemically identical to the magma found deep inside the Earth. The ice cores revealed a massive spike in sulfate aerosols, a chemical fingerprint that proves a cataclysmic volcanic event occurred. The Roman historians weren't being poetic, they were being literal reporters of the end of the world.
We now know that in early 536 AD, a volcano erupted with a violence that defies modern comprehension. The debate over which volcano is still ongoing, but the evidence points to a massive eruption in Iceland, or perhaps Ilopongo in El Salvador. Imagine a mountain tearing itself apart. The explosion was likely hundreds of times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. But it wasn't the lava that killed the world, it was the smoke. The volcano ejected millions of tons of ash, sulfur, and debris straight up into the stratosphere. Usually, rain washes ash out of the sky in a few weeks, but this explosion was so powerful that it pushed the cloud above the weather. Once in the stratosphere, the sulfur reacted with water vapor to form a massive reflective veil of sulfuric acid droplets. This veil spread out, carried by the jet stream until it wrapped the entire planet in a suffocating blanket. It acted like a giant mirror. When the sun's rays hit the Earth, they bounced off the sulfuric acid and were reflected back into space. The heat never touched the ground. The planet was plunged into a volcanic winter. The blue sun you saw was the result of the light scattering through this toxic haze. You were living in the shadow of a mountain that exploded on the other side of the world.
The catastrophe wasn't limited to your freezing room in Constantinople. The shadow covered everyone. In China, the Nanxi Chronicles record that in 536, yellow dust scooped up by handfuls rained from the sky. The emperor was forced to cancel the traditional poetry festivals because the people were too busy dying. In the summer of that year, frost killed the wheat in the fields of the Yellow River Valley. The famine there was so severe that man ate man, and the corpses were piled in the roads. In Peru, the Moche civilization, a powerful culture of master builders and artists, faced a climate apocalypse. The ice cores show that the volcanic winter disrupted the El Niño cycles. The Moche were hit by 30 years of drought, followed by massive flooding. Their irrigation canals failed. Their gods failed. The civilization collapsed into civil war and starvation, leaving behind only empty temples in the desert sand. In Scandinavia, the memory of this time became myth. The Norse legends speak of the Fimbul winter, the great winter that precedes Ragnarok, the end of the world. They described 3 winters in a row with no summer in between, where the sun turns black and brothers fight brothers for food. We used to think this was just a story about the gods. Now we realize it was a collective trauma memory of the year 536. The Vikings didn't invent the apocalypse, they survived it.
Eventually, the sulfur settled. The veil thinned. The sun turned yellow again. But the world that emerged from the mist was different. The classical world of antiquity had died in the cold dark. The Middle Ages had begun. The Roman Empire, already weak, was shattered. The plague that followed the famine depopulated the cities, leaving the great aqueducts and colosseums to crumble into ruin. The economy collapsed. The trade routes withered. Europe fractured into small, isolated warlord states, huddling in their castles, afraid of the dark. The year 536 reminds us of how fragile our civilization really is. We build our cities, our economies, and our lives on the assumption that the sun will rise tomorrow, warm and bright. We assume the harvest will come. We assume the summer will follow the spring. But nature makes no such promises. All it takes is one mountain waking up for one violent morning to turn the sun blue and send us back into the dark ages. The ice cores are still there, deep in the glaciers, holding the broken glass of the past. They are a silent warning that the ground beneath our feet is not as solid as we think, and the sky above us is not always our friend. Thank you for joining me in this nightmare of history. If you are listening to this in the dark, you might want to wait for the sunrise before you close your eyes.